Last time we spoke about, we're continuing to talk about Kashering with Libun. Last time we spoke about what temperature you need to do Libun, like what are you looking for when trying to do Libun. And today is about, the first we're going to start with is how you decide whether you should do Libun or Hagol. And basically, there are two rules of when you need to do Libun. Okay? The first rule is, you do Libun when the food has direct contact with the utensil. It's over the fire and no liquid. Okay, so that's one thing. It's got to be in direct contact, and right on the fire with that liquid. That's one type of thing that needs Libun. The second type of thing that needs Libun is a Kashrus. Okay, Kashrus, regardless of how you used it, needs it. And the other rule, which is if it's right on the fire without any liquids, that also needs Libun. That's the other type. So, for example, when you go floor of a pizza oven, the floor of a pizza oven needs to have Libun done to it, and that's because the pizza goes right onto the floor. As in many places, the pizza goes right onto the floor of the oven. And in a commercial pizza oven, it's made out of brick or cement, both of which are Kashrus. So it needs to have Libun because it actually has both reasons. It has both reasons. You can even one of them is good enough. So like in your toaster oven, the rack in your toaster oven, that people put food right onto the rack. So that rack needs Libun because that goes right over the fire. Dry food right over the fire, that needs Libun. And a coffee mug is your Kashrus. So even though you never put it on the fire, you just put liquids into it, that needs Libun. That needs Libun not because of the right on the fire, but because of the Kashrus part of it. Okay, so either one of those reasons is enough to make something need Libun. Said last time that there's the example of we're machmir to treat Kashrus like Kashrus, but even though we're machmir to treat like Kashrus, it has that leniency, as we mentioned last time, that it doesn't need Libun Kama. So even though Kashrus needs Libun, always needs Libun, and that means of course Libun Kama. Kashrus that's glass that we treat like Kashrus doesn't need Libun Kama. Okay. When do we use Hagala is when we have those opposites of that, so like a piece of silverware or a pot. Those kind of things are used with liquids. They're on the fire, but they're used with liquids, and they're used. They're not Kashrus, so you can do Hagala. Okay, there's something else in between, which is like a warming drawer or a hot box. Basically the same thing. Where the bliya happens through zayah coming out of the food. I'm not usually in a warming drawer and a hot box. There's no food actually touching the racks. The bliya into the chamber and even into the racks is through zayah. Vapors are coming out of it. So there is a sheet in the Prima Button that says the vapor that comes out of a dry food, when it hits something, demands that surface be kasher with Libun. Okay, that's not at all accepted. And the thing is that when any zayah that comes out of a product is considered like a liquid, and therefore the chamber of those needs to be kasher with Hagala, like the chamber of your oven. The chamber of a hot box or a warming tool will be kasher with Hagala. For practical purposes, it's easier to do Libun Kal than to do Hagala. And we said last time that you could do Libun Kal could take the place of Hagala. So it's more practical to do Libun Kal. It's hard to get boiling water onto all surfaces of a warming drum. How are you going to pull that off? You know what I mean? So it's easier to do Libun Kal. Exactly how you're supposed to do that, Mitzvah for a different time. There's a whole mathematical formulas and cheshbonos of how you do that. We'll talk a little bit more about it a little later, but really it's for a different time. How you kasher, those kind of things. When you took a hot box and a warming drum have just this one difference. I'll just point out one difference is that a hot box is generally made out of metal. A warming drawer, when we talk about warming drawer, like in your home oven, that's coated with porcelain enamel that we mentioned last time. That's considered glass, and so that needs Libun Kal for a different reason. That needs Libun Kal to replace Libun, not Libun Kal as Hagala. Okay, but that's the same basic idea. Okay, so those are things where the theoretically, at least in the hot box, theoretically it just needs Hagala, but we do Libun Kal just for convenience, just more practical to do Libun Kal than to Hagala.
Oh, except in the case of the warming drawer we would require Libun Kal Medina and stuff.
So, right, there we need Libun Kal, right, correct. In that, because of the glass shemai, we need Libun Kal in the place of Libun, correct. That's a little bit, that's an upgrade of that, that's correct, okay. There's something, pre-seasoned iron pans, okay, those are, a certain type of metal, it comes pre-seasoned, those, you kasher them because in the factory someone put an oil onto them and heated them up to pre-season them. We spoke to Rabbi Schwartz about that. And the decision is that you only need to do hagol to those because the bleed goes in as a liquid. Even though to us it's a dry product when you come to it, but the bleed that went in was through liquid.
It's a dry product.
The pan is dry, and when you come to the pan, the liquid that was put into there, it's not like there's a puddle on the thing. They smeared the stuff onto it, and it gives all appearances now of being dry. And
if I put a little bit of oil in a pan, I don't know what do you mean it's dry?
Put a little bit of oil in the pan, and
so what a pan? It's liquid. I don't know.
Okay, so it's okay. It is.
You cash your forks and knives.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not. Okay. I'm gonna change what I said. The more serious shot, it's okay. You're right. At this point, it's dry. That's not the point. The main point is that there's a sheet of a Maritzelon that would say that in that case, those things would need to have Libun done to them. Okay. Maybe we'll do it at a different time also. But we don't. We spoke to Rabbi Schwartz about it. No, you need to use Hagol too. Okay.
It's not really fish, right? Isn't it like the Lachum says that we pass in it's...
That it is a Shach who brings a Shita. We don't pass like that. You're right that it's Muslim like that.
But doesn't the Shach say we don't... I mean, isn't like...
The Shach is not so strong that it's like that. I don't remember him being so strong like that. We don't pass like that. That's the... Okay. The Gemara says... I have to mention, you can't get deep into this, but the Gemara mentions a klal that when a kli, so I had said, back to where I was, that there were two things that make something unique libun, either because it was kli cheres, or it was the food was right over the fire. Okay, so
right over the fire and it's dry.
Right over the fire and dry, so that needs libun. So the Gemara says, on that second one, of things that are right over the fire, there's a kula that if the blear that went in as when the food was still not isser yet, the Gemara's case is kachim. When you roasted the kachim, it wasn't yet asr. You roasted the kachim when it was still edible, and now later it became nicer. So if it was balea while it was still heter, the Gemara calls it heter bala. If the blear went in when it was still heter, there's a special kula that you don't have to do libun. You only have to do hagola to kasher that kli. Now, if it had been kli cheres, you do. I mean, that's mamish the case in the Torah that you have to do libun. Kli cheres is talking about kachim, so it's not a kula for cheres, but it is a kula for the other kind of libun. Libun that's done straight over the fire. You don't have to do. If it was a terrible, you can get away with hagol. You don't have to do libun. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. So there's a machlokes rishonim whether chametz that was balua before Pesach, which is usually when we have chametz before Pesach, whether it's heter or isur, and the Shulchan Aruch is very clear that we pass that chametz is isur. Okay. No, we pass the din is that it's chametz is isur. Okay, even the kol.
But the halacha, we very often...
I'm about to say that, but I want to say just before I say, I am going to say yes, that we are some in cases as a sif lahakol, but really the mechaber paskins, from what I'm going to say in a second, I'm not going to speak it all the way out, but it's clear from what the other thing that the mechaber says that he needs it really l'halacha l'maisa. He doesn't need it.
He says libun. I mean, he says libun.
Right, no, but you might read the mechaber saying he's doing it l'chumra. He's just saying that you should be machmir like that shita, but it's really not. He holds that min hadin that's the correct shita. But okay, but yes, it's true that there are situations when we're going to say, when we say, oh, we could be mitzaref the shita that hold the chametz is a teir and get away with hakol. Okay, now. Before I tell you the real case that's negated to us, I'll mention that there's a case that's not negated to Hilchos Pesach. That is the Shach says that what the Gemara says is true. Everyone agrees that by Heter Bola you could do Hagol instead of Libun unless it's a Klicheres. So we don't have any kachim, but the Shach says we have another case of Heter Bola that everyone agrees to, and that is if something was belay either basar or cholov that was kosher, okay, or even both of them as long as it worked within 24 hours, then that kli can be kashered with Hagolah. So if you have a frying pan that we would not kasher it, but frying pans and spray dryers, I forgot to mention, more complicated chayas where they need libun hakol. We're assuming that the frying pan needs libun. It's assuming that they need to have libun. Then that would be if it was belay a treif, or it was belay a chametz before Pesach, we would say it needs libun. But it had been just belay milchigs that we would kasher. It just happened last week when we were doing the kasher. There were lots of people who came in and said is they have a frying pan. The most common thing that they said is I have a frying pan. I don't remember if it's milchigs or fleshings. Okay, I took it out of the Pesach dishes, and I can't remember if it's milchigs or fleshings. So they're only kashering it from milchigs or fleshings. They keep kosher. They just don't remember which one it is. They want to just get it to neutral just so they can start again. Otherwise, it's useless. But it was used for kosher. Or someone else told me this week they had a milchig pan. If I remember the story, they had a milchig pan. When it was Ein Ben Yom, they used it for fleshings. Okay, so now they have this pan that's been used for both. They're stuck. They can't. But It was Balei Heter both times. So the Gemara says you can do Hagala for that. You don't have to do Libun for that. Okay? If it had been Klicheres, we would be stuck. But if it was something just to use right on the fire, and that's the reason why we did Libun. So it's a shot. That's okay. Anyhow, so this we said that there's a machlekes whether we say chametz is heterbal or isurabal, has one serious nafkamintos, and that is aside from the cases where mitzaref it, which is like this. Rav Krieger brings a riot that we never have to say that chametz is isurabala and be choishish for miyat tashmisha at the same time. Okay, miyat tashmisha means is that if you use a kli for all different ways, let's say sometimes it's a kli rishon, sometimes it's iru kli rishon, sometimes on the fire, use it in a bunch of different ways, you have to be kasher it according to the strictest way. Even the most miyut, even though you only occasionally use it a certain way, you have to kasher it for that way. And that's what the Ashkenazim do l'chorma. The Sfardim don't do that. The Sfardim just say, you follow Roiv Tashmisha, you just follow the main way that you use it, but we're machmir to do Miyat Tashmisha. But we don't have to be choishish for Miyat Tashmisha and Isur Bol at the same time. Rav Krieger makes a cheshbon why that's true. So we don't have to do them at the same time. So that means for Pesach, if we have something that we want to kasher for Pesach, and usually it's used in a way that's only needs Hagala, on occasionally you use it in a way that needs Libun, once in a while you use it like that, then you're not, if you're kashering it for Pesach, you're not mechuyev to do Libun on that thing. Because it would either Roiv Tashmisha would say Hagala, or Heter Bol would say Hagala. So individually we're machmir for both of those shitas, but together, simultaneously, we're not going to be machmir for them. And therefore, we could kasher them with just Hagala. And that's the reason, if you think, if you think about it, the reason why, if you have a fork, you could kasher it with Hagala. Why don't you say you need Libun for it? Because if I ever stick the fork onto the fire and pull something out of the oven with it, then I need to do Libun for that thing. Okay, I need to do Libun. Well, one of the reasons is because when I'm kashering for Pesach, I don't have to be choishish for miyat tashmisha. The mamash occasionally usually use it as a kli rishon or klishengi. Occasionally I pull it out, something out of the fire. Miyat tashmisha, and to therefore require Libun for Pesach, I'm not mechuyev to do that. Okay, now, but there's a big limitation to what I just said to you. The din that we follow the din that we could follow Roiv Tashmisha, either for Sfardim all the time, or for Ashkenazim in this special case, has a very severe limitation, and that is the kli has to be Ein Ben Yomei. That whole din that you can follow Miyat Tashmisha, the Rashba says only works if the kli is Ein Ben Yomei, whatever the cheshbon is, it only works when it's Ein Ben Yomei. So therefore, if I want to kasher the grates in my oven, keep the grates inside of my oven. So I don't know about in your house, but in my house, every so often someone decides they want to toast their hot dog bun right onto the grates of the oven, or they stick a challah to warm it in the oven, okay, they put it right onto the grates, racks, right onto the rack. They stick it right into the oven, right onto the rack. They want to they open up the bun, stick it onto the rack, and they toast their bun like that. So there is a miyat tashmisha, at least in my house, a miyat tashmisha that those racks are used right on the fire with a piece of chametz, but we don't have to do Libun for that. We don't have to do Libun because to do Libun and because it's for me Tashmisha for Pesach, we're not mechuyev to do that. But it has to be
the Roiv Tashmisha of the racks.
The Roiv Tashmisha is Zayah. The Roiv Tashmisha of this racks is a belay through Zayah, and we can kasher with Hagala. Okay, it's a plain piece of metal. It's belay through Zayah and through spills. Okay, I can kasher that with Hagala. The Miyat Tashmisha is that I put food right onto there. So this that I don't have to be choishish for that Miyat Tashmisha and therefore do Libun. But I have to be Ein Ben Yomei. So it comes out that even though the din is, we said, listen, we don't pass it. There's a Prima Golden who says Libun has to be done, Libun Kal has to be done when it's Ein Ben Yomei. We don't pass like that. I mean, that din, from the Libun Kal din, doesn't have to be Ein Ben Yomei. But from this din, it has to be Ein Ben Yomei. If there's a Miyat Tashmisha, if I want to take advantage and say, I only want to be choishish for Roiv Tashmisha, I have to be Ein Ben Yomei for that reason. Okay, so the racks in my oven get kasher as Ein Ben Yomei, not because Libun Kal needs Ein Ben Yomei, but because if I want to get away with Libun Kal, I have to say Roiv Tashmisha. If I want to say Roiv Tashmisha, I have to be Ein Ben Yomei. Okay,
so why do we say in our guide that you have to cover the racks of the oven if you don't have a self-cleaning oven?
We say in our guide that you don't have to kasher them, but you have to wait for them to be Ein Ben Yomei. Don't kasher.
So why do we say you have to cover them?
Do we say you have to cover the rack? I'm not familiar with that. Does it say that? I'm not familiar with that.
I don't think it says it. So I don't even remember but
It's not only that, you have to talk both sides of it.
Most people are going to kasher their racks, you know, but
Right.
not kashering their ovens.
Right.
So therefore, it's always good to tell people to make it an Einov.
We do. So we tell people you should make it Ein. We do tell them. They ask us. They say to us, "Are you saying it
If you
should?"
look at the guide. The guide's really not as clear.
Okay, so we can clarify. But people ask it.
That's what I told people who called me as well. I said, you know, for all these reasons, you know, make sure it's an Einov Yom, but you know.
Didn't say. Okay, so we were looking at the guy.
I think the guy says it's Ein B'Yemen.
What did you say?
The guy does say it's Ein B'Yemen.
Even for self-cleaning?
No, not for self-cleaning. No, not for self-cleaning. If self-cleaning, we call them Libun Gomer. But non-self-cleaning, sure. What does it say?
The interior and exterior surfaces of the oven should be thoroughly clean. The oven should not be used for a full 24 hours. Then turn it should be turned on. At the highest temperature for 1 hour. As an added precaution for Passover, once this process is complete, the racks and grates should be covered on both sides with aluminum foil.
Both sides.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what the rack is. But okay. So people have asked us plenty of times. They say, "How come you say it has to be Ein B'Yemen? Don't we now postulate this Prima Government? Don't we say that Libun Kal doesn't have to be Ein B'Yemen?"
All the time, really?
I've gotten that question many times. I think we had an FAQ about it even. And we had that question. And the answer is, this is the answer. The answer is because the Ein B'Yemen is not because of the Libun Kal Shabbat. The Ein B'Yemen is because if you want to follow Roy Tashmishay, which is what we're doing essentially, if you want to follow Roy Tashmishay, you have to be Ein B'Yemen for certified. So indirectly you have to be Ein B'Yemen, not for what you think it is. Okay?
Was there a steer to this thing? You know, if you knock on both of these things, there was some Mishnah Berurah somewhere that was a steer to this.
There is a diag in Mishnah Berurah, yes, not like that. Okay? Rabbi Kveger, however, makes a diag exactly the opposite. He brings in the Ramah, one of his rayas, not his svara, but his rayas. The Ramah gives a bunch of examples of when you have to be choishish for miyat tashmisha. He has a whole bunch of examples, and lo and behold, not one of them says Libun. You should think that would be an obvious choice. Say, I sometimes need Libun, sometimes I need Hagala. Not one of his choices. That's not the explanation, but that's like a riot he brings himself that this cheshbon is correct. It's a cheshbon based on.
Maybe that's why you should cover the racks, but maybe if you're not.
I don't know where that came from. Okay, we'll have to dig into find out who wrote this strange instruction. Okay, fine. Now on to a last thing, which is how to do it. Okay, how you do Libun. We talked about what temperatures you need. We talked about how you decided whether you should Libun or Hagala, and now sort of an easier one, which is how you do Libun, and that is the simple thing you do is you take a torch people use nowadays. You take a fire and you put it onto the clay until it gets to however hot. We said it had to be last time. Okay, so it's you have to remember, but the Mechaber says that the very first thing in Hagala's Kalim says that when you kasher a kli, you can only kasher a kli if you're confident that you're not going to ruin the kli by doing that. If you're apprehensive because you might break your kli while you're kashering it, then you're not allowed to kasher it because we're afraid you're going to be, so cautious that you're not going to do a full job. If you're afraid you can't get to that hot of a temperature, you won't do your job right. And so that's particularly true by Libun. When you do Libun, you easily could ruin the kli. So the scientists, the metallurgists say that the reason is because when you heat metal unevenly, it warps. Okay, and if you heat it all evenly at an even temperature, it has no problem. We actually had a company, I don't know if we still certify them, who used to Libun Gomer. Okay, they had this company that was a service that they provided people. They will do Libun Gomer to your candle. So we went there to understand what these people do. They do this hot temperature for whatever reason they do. They have their own reason why they're doing it. And as an aside, they can do Libun with it. So we said they were taking the most delicate-looking kalim and putting it into this thing and doing basically Libun Gomer to it. So we said to them, how do you do it? Doesn't it ruin the kalim? No, not at all. They didn't pay any attention. They just put whatever they wanted to in there. And the reason is because the way they were heating it, it was being heated evenly and then cooled down evenly, and they didn't have any problems. They put metals into there, they came out looking perfect. I mean, clean as anything, clean as a whistle, and never got ruined. Okay, so they tell us that the reason is because if you heat it unevenly, which is what you're going to do if you have a torch or a flame, then the left side is going to get hotter than the right side. You can't do it so well. And the professionals who use torches, I'm not one of them, but I watch these people do it. They slowly heat it up. And as they move the flame all around, as they slowly heat the whole thing up, and eventually get the whole thing up to the temperatures, and then slowly, hopefully, cool it down also to get like that. Okay, so you have to the traditional way to do it is just with a fire. Okay, which is why most people don't believe them because they're afraid to break it. Okay, and I'll throw in.
There's another fear. Let's say you fear you're going to burn down your house. Is that also with that being
same thing?
Not necessarily that's
same thing. Oh, so it's good you mentioned that because when we kasher the pizza ovens, one pizza oven they kasher in the store, and it was frightening. I mean, because the flames and the smoke was horrific. Okay, so it was exactly what you said that we were afraid to do a good job because I mean, it was pretty scary what was going on in there. Okay, so the next time we did it, we got smarter. We took the floor out of the pizza oven and put it into the parking lot. Okay, then we had no problems at all. Because out in the open, there was nothing to be afraid of over there. But right there in the middle of the place, it was very afraid. I mean, whatever, it wasn't funny. Okay, anyhow, we have a video of that. Yeah. Not when it was getting pretty bad. Okay, so while I'm here, I'll just throw in, it has nothing to do with what I'm saying, but I'll throw it in here, it's worth saying, which is, the Mechaber says it's an halacha beis, that you have to have the fire on the side of the food, on the side of the kli where the food goes, not on the side where the fire goes. You have to have the fire on the side where the food goes. You can have it on the other side also, but you have to have it on the, so when you have a kli and the food's usually on the inside, the fire has to be on the inside, not on the, where the fire is, which is usually on the outside. Okay, so when Rabbi Oppenheimer does it, he actually uses something what we had here last week. He uses that for Libun Kal. He doesn't use it for Libun Gomer, but he has something that he uses for heating. He has this paint removing gun, which shoots out heat of 750 or 1,000 degrees, depending on the two settings. Okay, so it's nice and hot. So that's also a fire. We consider an electric coil that's heated up to be a fire also. So that's also a fire. Okay, if you can put a fire, you can do like that also. So, but some of the more simple ways to do it is, there are lots of people nowadays who have electric stovetops. Okay? An electric stovetop is, I don't mean ones that have a glass on top, but just a exposed electric stovetop. And what that is just, it's a coil, like what I have in my toaster. Okay, it's a coil, it goes around in a circle, and you turn it on. Okay, when you turn that on, turn it up to high, it turns red hot pretty quickly. Give it a couple of minutes, it heats up to red hot. And when it gets hot, that's it. I mean, it's Libun, it's lye. I mean, the whole thing is Libun. So if you wanted to cash that, it's really easy to cash that. And you can do Libun, it's very controlled. You turn it on, when you turn it on to high, let it sit. Once it gets red hot, let it sit for a couple of minutes and you're in business. Okay? That's fine. We actually, I'll mention, we had a neighbor who tried that, who followed our old instructions and left their thing on for, like we told them, for a very long time, and started melting the electronics in their oven. Okay, because it got so hot, the thing was so burning hot, it's not like a gas fire. It get on high, it got so burning hot, we've toned down our instructions since then. But the coil itself gets hot very quickly.
The top was melting electronics in the oven?
No, the electronics controls were behind the oven, in the test.
Well, they turned them all on at the same time?
Yeah,
on the stove top.
On the stovetop controls were behind it, and they were getting melted. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. So okay, so that's easy. Now, there's another way that we use, and we try to use it for the pizza ovens, and that is the Mechaber in Tuf Samach Aleph. Okay, most of our goals came with Tuf Nun Aleph and Tuf Nun Beis, but in Tuf Samach Aleph, when it tells you how to make matzah, so one of the things you got to do to make matzah is you have to kasher the oven. In other words, they didn't have a matzah bakery; they had an oven, like in wherever they baked everything else in. So they had to kasher it for Pesach. So the Mechaber here explains how to kasher the floor of the matzah oven. The floor of the oven is where the matzah sits right onto it. It needs libun. It might have been Kashrus also, I don't remember. But you need to kasher with libun. So the Mechaber talks about filling it up with coals and as a way of kashering it. And whatever the details are that it says over there, but one of the details that's missing is, it doesn't say over there how long you're supposed to do that for. It says, fill it up with coals. Well, over there he talks about until Nitzaisis Nitzin. Okay, but we don't get that. So what are you supposed to do that for? Okay, so you put it, so there is such a thing as doing libun by filling it up with coals. We said to Rabbi Shefter, okay, tell us how long we should do it for. We're ready to do it, because that's easy. On a pizza oven, which is what we do, fill it with coals, it gets absolutely burning hot, all on fire. I mean, the whole thing is basically on fire. But how long do you do that for? Okay, that works for those things much better than a torch. Or for us, it works much better than a torch. Anyhow, we weren't really sure. Rabbi Shefter said do it for an hour, which is what we did. We put them on, they burned for an hour, and then eventually they burnt themselves out. They got way burning hot. I can't tell you it was Nitzaisis, but it was Libun. We decided that it was Libun. Okay, and one last thing is, when we do Libun, all the things I've described to you with a torch, a torch, and a paint remover, and what did I say? And coals, all of them mean that you're putting fire right onto the thing that needs Libun. But we have another way that we do Libun, and that is by warming up a chamber. Okay? We don't put a fire right onto the kli. We do by warming up a chamber, and we do that if you self-clean your oven. Okay, let's say you self-clean your oven. You don't self-clean it by putting a fire onto the walls. So if you believe that self-cleaning is Libun, which we accept, true or not, we accept that self-cleaning is considered Libun. So if you consider that to be Libun, wait a second, there's no fire on the chamber. There's no fire touching the...
It's on the wrong side, like you said.
No, there's no fire touching the metal. There's no fire... all the things I described to you so far was you put the fire right onto the metal. You put the fire onto the metal and do it until it's in. Now it's
on the wrong side.
not just that it's on the wrong side, it's not even touching the metal.
Pretty close.
It's close, but it's warming up the chamber. Okay, so it's not exactly what it's described in Shulchan Aruch. It's not exactly what's described there. As far as the wrong side, I'll talk about. I didn't mean to talk about that, but we consider it to be the right side, and we assume that little shelf that's in between is just like having a shelf in your oven, rather than saying that it's fire from the outside. You could definitely argue that. So you could definitely say that the fire is on the outside, but we assume that the fire is considered to be on the inside. That might not be accurate, but that's what we consider. But
do we know the exact temperature it gets to? I saw various.
in self-cleaning,
900.
between 800 and 1,000, depending on your company. Different people who yes, different companies, depending on the company, gets to 800 or 1,000.
So nobody cares. I mean, you mentioned last time this Machlokas, whatever, Schwartz or Schechter,
Right, the number.
Legal come is 800, 950. So,
Right. So Rabbi Schwartz said that Rabbi Schechter only said 950 because that's what self-cleaning in his house gets to. But that's not really temperature. He didn't think that was the truth. But maybe Rabbi Schechter doesn't agree with that. But that's what he
I'm
means.
asking from Schechter's point of view, how sacrosanct is this 950? Right?
Rabbi Schwartz didn't think it was so exact. He didn't think it was such a... But the question is, could you do Libun Gomer just by heating up a chamber rather than actually putting a fire onto it? Okay? So, it's a question. We assume that you can. We assume that you can. We tell people do when they do it to their self-cleaning ovens, and we do it for Libun Kal when we do warming drawers and hot boxes. We do that also the same kind of thing. We warm up a chamber. We don't actually put fire onto the edges. Now you're clear Libun Kal needs fire. Libun Kal, what's the other choice? Heat. Okay, no, well, let me say this. You can't do Libun Kal with water. Okay, so you want to do Libun Kal with just by heat, that's what I'm saying. Heat, warming up the chamber is saying I'm doing it with heat and not putting it with fire. You can't make, you're saying, so you're saying, let's say we have steam coils running through something, I blow air over it, and warm up the chamber, so there's no fire. Okay, I'm not sure. We don't do Libun Kal like that. We can think about that. They say, maybe I just use steam coils, that's not heat, that's not a fire. Maybe, okay, but we warm up the chamber, so basically, it's really not our shayla for today. It happens to be it's a machlokes, disagreement. Rabbi Belsky thinks that when you warm up a chamber, that's not good enough for Libun, unless you have a higher temperature. Okay, there's new rules. All the rules you heard about Libun Kal and Libun Gomer needs, there's a separate set of rules if you just warm up the chamber. Just the regular numbers and all the things you've heard until now are not true if you warm up the chamber. And there are rayas from Tav Samach Aleph, not like that. We spoke about it once. We'll show another time when we talk about Kashering hot boxes. We'll talk about it more directly. But according to him, warming up a chamber has different rules than putting a fire right onto it. Okay? And Rabbi Schwartz was of the opinion, and there are rayas to it, that warming up the chamber works just as well as actually putting the flame onto it. The cases in the Shulchan Aruch are all cases. The cases of Libun Gomer are all when you put the fire onto it. There are cases of Libun Kal, those are the rayas. Libun Kal that you're just warming up a chamber. But for Libun Gomer, I don't know of a specific raya.
When you put something in the kitchen to do Libun Gomer, right? You say anyway, it's got to be in the flames.
Okay, so you're saying that tells you when I put it in the kitchen, the whole chamber is warm, right? Okay, that's a good raya. Okay,
There's fire in the chamber, right?
So there's no fire on the klicheres that you put it in. Okay, so you're saying that's an example.
It's a separate chamber? It's not like a separate chamber.
No, it's also the same chamber. When I do a hot box, I put fire into the chamber, but not onto every surface. So you're actually saying, well, it's the same thing. When I do a klicheres in a kivsham, I don't put the cheres into the flame, I just put it basically into a warm chamber. Okay, so you think that's a raya, again, that the rules are the rules, whatever they are, whatever. Okay, for a different time.